Legend of Exorcism. Chapter 19, Fei Ao's Death Sentence. The Ao fish once again shifted into human form, and Fei Ao couldn't help but stagger as he fought to rise up, still clutching that little fox to his chest. Fei Ao's abdomen had been shot clean through, leaving behind a gaping, bloody hole. As the exorcists rushed out, the corner of his mouth drew up in a sliver of a grim smile. "Ah well," Fei Ao said brokenly. "Today was a fated encounter that I couldn't escape." In the plaza, all of the people in Daming Palace who had been startled awake rushed out to check on the commotion. Just then, black fog came billowing in from all directions, blanketing the ground, spreading around almost as if it was alive. "Everyone hide!" Li Jinglong shouted. "That's a Yaogwai." The more daring of the eunuchs and the guards retreated to the corner, but they were unwilling to leave, watching the scene from afar. That black fog encroached non-stop on Fei Ao, and Li Jinglong said quietly, "Are there talismans that can seal him away?" "No," Hung Jun breathed. "There are only ones that can smack him down. He has yet to show his true form. Perhaps if you use your sword to stab it, try it." This bastard could actually take quite a few hits. That day he had thankfully not tried to chase him down on his own, otherwise he might not have been able to be its opponent. Li Jinglong pulled out his long sword and said, "All of you protect me." The silent plaza was very strange. All they heard was Fei Ao uttering a few indecipherable sentences of a chant in that diffused black fog. In the next moment, he lifted his head and stared at the group, saying in a low voice, "Even if I die, I also." In a flash, Hung Jun wielded his pentacolored sacred light, creating a shield in front of them. Just then Fei Ao exploded with a ping, and the black fog around him turned into millions of black flames, shooting towards all corners of the plaza. Everyone that the black flame touched let out wails of agony, rolling about on the ground, and when their wails died down, they had turned into black, rotten Ao fish that leapt towards the group. The plaza was filled with rotten Ao fish, all of them opening their toothy maws wide as they rushed towards the 5 people. Hung Jun lifted up the pentacolored sacred light to block them, but he didn't dare to kill these transformed beings, afraid of the consequences if he hurt a person and couldn't save them in time, only to hear Li Jinglong shout, "Get to him!" And with that, he lifted his sword and rushed at those black flames in the middle of the plaza. Hung Jun again lifted the pentacolored sacred light, and with a quick sidestep, he opened up a path for Li Jinglong. On all sides were the black Ao fish, carrying with them the stink of rotting flesh. A Tai then sent out a whirlwind, and Mo Rijin shot out his 7-nailed arrows, but they also could not kill them all. Chu Yongxi looked around and loudly shouted, "Don't come over here! Don't come over here! Hung Jun! Where are you going?" Everyone! More Ao fish filled in the gaps that their dead companions left, and A Tai and Mo Rijin roared angrily at the same time. "A Tai, Chu Yongxi!" Mo Rijin finally couldn't stand it anymore, and he shouted, "Hurry up and attack!" Chu Yongxi smiled and said, "You guys are enough, I think, my good brothers." Before he finished his sentence, Mo Rijin purposefully let an Ao fish in, and with a pang, it latched onto Chu Yongxi. In that moment Chu Yongxi almost exploded, his usually carefree demeanor vanished, and he hurried to reach his hand into his robes only to be knocked onto the ground by that Ao fish. "Go away!" Chu Yongxi cried. That Ao fish opened its huge maw filled with pointy teeth and extended its slick, dripping tongue to wrap around Chu Yongxi's neck. Chu Yongxi's tolerance had finally broken through his bottom line, and he loudly cried, "Get away from me!" Then Chu Yongxi pulled out a calligraphy brush. A Tai and Mo Rijin were in front, blocking off the never-ending waves of Ao fish, when they suddenly felt their entire bodies starting to float. "Ah ah ah ah!" Chu Yongxi wildly shouted. "All of you go away! Go away! Everyone!" That calligraphy brush waved wildly in the air, and the Ao fish that was leaping right at him turned into a puddle of black ink with a shua, as if it had been smashed flat by a huge force. At once A Tai and Mo Rijin both turned their heads back and looked at Chu Yangzi. Chu Yangzi was frightened out of his wits as he held a calligraphy brush wrought of white marble, trembling non-stop. The tip of that brush suddenly gave off a strong light, inside of which appeared countless meteor-like brush strokes. Yaogwai! Chu Yangzi wildly bellowed as he waved the brush in his hand once again. Mo Rijin and A Tai both stopped in their attacks. That sweeping brush stroke of Chu Yangzi's turned the entirety of the plaza into a shan shui painting, and in the next instant all the AO fish had also transformed into ink traces swimming around, before they all swam out, shua la la. The space between the heavens and the earth was filled with light and space, and ripples began to form in front of Chu Yangzi, spreading endlessly outwards. The painted pillars and palace walls of Daming Palace, and even the surrounding mountains, turned into a giant ink painting. The AO fish were swept up by that strange energy and began to spin in circles around the plaza. The extremely dangerous scenery of a moment before had actually, under an elegant brush stroke of Chu Yangzi's, easily turned into a painting of hundreds of AO fish dancing in the spring. Mo Rijin angrily shouted, "You should have done this a long time ago." A Tai was almost angered to death by Chu Yangzi, and he also furiously demanded, "Why didn't you pull out this artifact earlier?" Chu Yangzi couldn't stop panting, and his eyes were glazed over. Wah! He finally attacked. Finally attacked. Look at it. What happened? Hung Jun only felt that the entire area had changed, but he couldn't point out where the anomaly was. The scenery on the edges started twisting and melting together. Li Jinglong shouted, "Stop staring! Take this opportunity, quick!" Wait! Hung Jun felt that his own body was floating in the air, and he couldn't set foot on the ground. Just as Li Jinglong was about to stab that mass of black energy, he also started floating upwards. Those inky mountains were diffusing with a speed almost visible to the naked eye, and the black energy couldn't help but let out a cry of shock. Originally it wanted to escape, but it now also had no ability to control its own motions. "End your spell!" Li Jinglong turned his head back and shouted. "Don't play around!" A Tai and Mo Rijin once again admonished Chu Yangzi in unison. "First you want me to attack. Then you want me to withdraw. What exactly do you guys want?" Chu Yangzi's lungs were also about to explode from anger. In that instant, the plaza had already become a giant-sized flat ink painting. Everything within vicinity had been sucked in, flattened, and transformed into a part of the piece. The black fire rushed left and right in the painting as it tried to escape, and Chu Yangzi stood in the back hall holding his brush as he shouted, voice wavering, "I can't hold it anymore. I'm releasing the magic. You guys be careful. Scatter!" Li Jinglong shouted. At this moment, Fei Ao, who had been enveloped by the black fire, let out a wild roar. With the last of his energy, he let loose his scales, and the Yao energy shot out, temporarily puncturing the painting. At the same time, Chu Yangzi was hit with the shock of the Yao energy, and blood dribbled out of the corner of his mouth as he was stunned into taking half a step back. Black energy exploded in the painting, and it shattered into pieces. Hung Jun and Li Jinglong landed on the ground at the same time, and with a swipe of his hand, Hung Jun blocked the roiling black energy from entering the barrier formed by the pentacolored sacred light. "Stab it!" Hung Jun shouted. Li Jinglong took their fall as an opportunity to grab Hung Jun with his left hand, and the two of them landed together. Inside the safety of the pentacolored sacred light, he pulled out his sword, and with a single thrust, he stabbed through the protective barrier. An enraged roar bellowed, and the sword embedded itself in Fei Ao's chest. Fei Ao's shouts abruptly ceased. A burst of energy came up from below, sweeping the cobblestones up and out before it vanished as quickly as dust and ash on the wind. As soon as the painting split open, all of the black energy on the swimming AO fish dissipated, and the people who had been trapped recovered control of their own bodies, slamming into the corners of the plaza. Upon his death, Fei Ao exploded into black energy that went in all directions. Li Jinglong and Hung Jun fell to the ground at the same time in a flash. Li Jinglong spun the hilt in his hand and sent the long sword spinning outwards, before then turning around in midair to face Hung Jun. His back crashed solidly onto the ground. Li Jinglong let out ahn. When Hung Jun fell, his entire body landed on top of Li Jinglong. That moment, Li Jinglong felt like Zhao Zilong, being buffeted around everywhere. With a huff he was solidly slammed into the ground by Hung Jun, and Hung Jun accidentally kneed him in the abdomen area too, knocking all breath out of him. His entire body went limp as he lay there on the white marble cobblestones. The morning sun rose from the east, passing over the mountains towards the divine land, and the golden light billowed over the land, shedding its light onto Daming Palace, where Hung Jun had fought his way out of Li Jinglong's embrace and was shaking him repeatedly. Zhenshi! Zhenshi! Are you all right? Li Jinglong's entire body felt like it had been stepped on by multiple elephants, and he moaned, "My ribs might be broken. It feels like there are internal injuries. I have medicine." Hung Jun hurried to say. "I promise that as soon as you take it, you'll be healed." Li Jinglong, Atai, Mo Rijin, and Chu Yangxi ran up as Hung Jun tugged on Li Jinglong's hand, lending him his shoulders so that he could stand up straight. The plaza of the back hall was filled with unconscious palace residents and guards, and the parts of Daming Palace that had been destroyed were a back hall, a side hall, a courtyard, numerous shattered pieces of ceramic decor, with their gilded pieces littering the floor. 7 pillars had been broken, and 3 walls had fallen in. Countless windows, doors, and glazed screens had been wrecked as well. The sunlight shone down on the people there, the ground covered with precious gems in a sea of gold. "Zhenshi, what did you want to say?" Hung Jun lifted his head to look at Li Jinglong, seeing that his expression wasn't quite right. "I wanted to say." Li Jinglong took a deep breath and said desperately, "How much money do we have to pay in compensation?" "How much money ah? Much money ah? Money ah? Dash." The sounds echoed in the mountains, and, accompanying that proud rising sun, didn't cease for a long time. On this bright and sunny autumn day, the Carpiao was currently hanging up Hung Jun's clothes to dry in the yard. Every time it washed any clothes, the clothes always carried a whiff of mud and fish stink, but Hung Jun never cared about that. When he was away from home, the fact that there was still someone to wash his clothes for him was already a luxury beyond comparison. But the Carpiao minded, because it was afraid that Hung Jun was always the subject of derision when it wasn't around, and it also was self-conscious that its fish stink was so strong, so it always pushed Hung Jun to go out with his new friends. As for itself, staying in the yard and watching the house was good enough. Those were the words it spoke, but when the Carpiao did end up staying in, it was a little disappointed, since it felt like it wasn't needed anymore. It could only use the reason that everyone will eventually grow up to comfort itself. "I should go burn some incense," the Carpiao said to itself, to prevent Hung Jun from being looked down on again. And with a hop and a skip, it went to go find some incense, and when it stopped on the pathway, it couldn't help but let out a sigh. Outside the yard, everyone had returned. Li Jinglong's complexion made him look like he was on his last breath. "Put Zhenshi down here ba," Hung Jun said. The Carpiao asked, "You're back? How did it go?" Everyone was ungainly slumped over, lying down in the front hall, and Li Jinglong's expression was a little wooden. "You lost the fight." The Carpiao felt a little rush of hidden glee in its chest, and it said, "I just knew that I should have gone with you guys." Hung Jun said, "We got rid of that Yaogwai, but the throwing knives are gone too." The Carpiao spouted a few sentences of condolences. There was no rush to find the throwing knives, but Li Jinglong said, "Today everyone has worked hard, so go rest now. As for the other things, I'll keep thinking of ideas." Everyone came over to consolingly pat Li Jinglong's shoulder before returning to their own rooms to sleep. Li Jinglong cradled his forehead in one hand, sitting at the low table staring off into space. The Carpiao went over and asked, "What's wrong? Let me be alone for a bit, let me have some peace and quiet." The Carpiao then closed the door, but before it left, it said, "If there's any bumps that can't be gotten over, sniffing a little Lihun pollen should fix the issue. The new batch has already been bought." Li Jinglong smiled bitterly and asked, "How much was it?" "It's still 3,200 taels ah," the Carpiao smiled and said. A Tai and them had already told the boss that this time they'd open a tab, and they'd go pay it off at the beginning of next month. Li Jinglong. Daming Palace had been destroyed to such an extent, so Li Jinglong naturally could not run off after the battle or let the people there inhale the Lihun pollen, or everyone who guarded the palace would all lose their heads. But the Yao was already gone, leaving behind a mess for him to clean up, and that wasn't including Hu Sheng's room in the Longwu army headquarters that had been ruined as well. He would obviously have to give some kind of an explanation, so he picked up a brush to give a signature, even if it was the Longwu army and the Judiciary Department checking the case, requiring repairs, or being dragged out in front of the Son of Heaven for questioning. All of these actions would be based on that one signature, and they would all go to find him anyways. Whatever, he would go to sleep first. Thinking this, Li Jinglong tossed the dirty outer robe he had onto the side, lying down directly on the ground. He would worry about those troubles after he woke up. All the doors were closed, the exorcists were all nearly fatigued to death, and they skipped breakfast in favor of getting a good rest. After the Carpiao finished washing the clothes, it laid down in its own pond to stare up at the white clouds in the sky. The sun had marched on in its journey to the west, and only then, at noon, did the people start getting up. Right after noon, the sound of hooves clattered from outside the door, and the sound of carriage wheels didn't stop coming, one by one, until parked outside their door were 4 or 5 carriages. The Carpiao warily poked its fish head out, and its mouth opened and closed soundlessly, as if debating whether it should go wake up Li Jinglong. "The glorious and powerful Son of Heaven has arrived." The eunuch's voice sounded from outside. "The beloved consort has arrived." The Carpiao suddenly thought of Feng Changqing's mention of letting the imperial consort enjoy it, and it rushed out of the pond and hid in a patch of tall grass by the wall. "The Chancellor of the Right has arrived. Lady Qingguo has arrived. Lady Quoquo has arrived." Inside the exorcism department, all of the doors were tightly shut and everyone was still sleeping. "Where is the Zhenshi of the exorcism department, Li Jinglong?" "Immediately come out to receive the Emperor dash." No matter, we will go in presently to take a look." "Ho, this exorcism department is so stylish." "Yay! Big sister, which honored Buddha is this?" "This is Akala, who slays Yao and defeats Mo. Seems to be a fighting decoration." Meow. Apparently when Duke De was still in Chang'an, he bought this little yard but never got around to fixing it up. He even wanted to send some craftsmen over to clean things up a little. "Your Majesty is now worrying unnecessarily." The Li family also enjoyed some fame before, and though their finances have since been affected, they still know how to enjoy themselves. "Where's Li Jinglong?" "Li Jinglong." Yang Quozhong, Li Longji, Yang Yahuan, Lady Quoquo, Lady Qingguo, and their entourages stood in the courtyard as the eunuch shouted, "Li Zhenshi! His Majesty has come to see you." "Li Jinglong!" Li Longji suddenly gathered his breath and let loose a Son of Heaven shout, the sound akin to a bright bells. Everyone started laughing at the same time, and Li Jinglong, who had been greatly frightened, rushed out of the main hall with his feet bare, wearing only an inner robe, his hair in great disarray. In that moment, he blinked at the sight before him in disbelief. "Where is everyone?" Yang Quozhong shouted. "Are there still people at the exorcism department?" Hu. A Tai, who was wearing a set of silken pajama pants, came running out. Closely following were Hung Jun, Chu Yangzi, and Mo Rijin, all of them barefoot as they glanced about wildly. Today, Li Longji was wearing a set of commoner's robes, and Li Jinglong didn't recognize him at first. However, Yang Qiuzhong was a face he recognized, and his heart let out a thump. "Why are you all sleeping when it's daytime?" Li Longji smiled and said. "Everyone." Li Jinglong sighed in his heart, and he could only answer, "Yesterday night we went out to catch a yao, so we didn't sleep for the whole night." This official's lectures were not strict enough. Saying this, Li Jinglong sank to the ground on one knee, but Li Longji hurried to lift him up, indicating that it was no matter. Seeing the four people behind him walking over happily, he asked, "You all are Jinglong's subordinates? What are your names?" They all respectively gave him their names without bowing or gesturing in respect. Even though at this time the Great Tang's customs were more relaxed and it was not necessary to kneel upon seeing the emperor, very few people without any official title, who would be counted as basically the common people, would be so bold as to greet him so casually. In fact, this was the first time he'd seen it. Yang Qiuzhong was just about to berate them, but Yang Yehuan, with a gentle smile, lifted her hand, indicating that there was no harm done. "Everybody has helped my sister find Qing Yang Yehuan said warmly with a smile. "Today we have come specially to thank you all. This Qing was the foundation of her life, and in those days where it went missing, she cried so many times." I. Lady Qingguo hurried to interrupt Yang Yehuan's words, and this had Li Longji amused beyond belief. Yang Yehuan's words here turned the atmosphere a little more proper. This was the first time Hung Jun was seeing the Son of Heaven who carried the blessing of the North Star, and he was very curious, so he couldn't help but keep glancing at Li Longji's face. He saw that his features were fine, and they held the dignity and majesty expected of a monarch, but his speech was very easygoing. Only between his brows was there a faint trace of a shadow. He looked over and saw that Yang Yehuan's face was fair like the bright moon, bringing its quiet brilliance into the exorcism department. She was really an eye-catching beauty. Lady Qingguo, behind the consort, was a little inferior in her looks, but was still comparable to Xi, with clean and pretty features. As for Lady Qiuquo standing in the back, she was a little older, and she wore a severe expression without smiling or speaking. Yang Qiuzhong looked handsome and proper, and he was tall and well built. Standing in front of Li Jinglong, whose head was still lowered, Yang Qiuzhong actually was a little taller than him. "Specially here to thank," Yang Yehuan laughed to herself, as if she always found amusement in the regular events of her daily life. Thanking the consort for her grace, Li Jinglong hurried to say. Everyone else and Hung Jun all had the same thought as their eyes wandered boldly over this group of people, not letting even a single detail escape. "Come," Yang Yehuan personally opened a box, which was filled with the pastries that Hung Jun liked to eat, and she said, "The butler told me that there was a young master who liked these. Who is it?" "This many Min Zi Min Gao." As soon as Hung Jun saw those crystal mochi golden cakes, he exclaimed, "So good!" Li Longji. Yang Qiuzhong. Li Jinglong. What? Yang Yehuan hadn't heard the words clearly, and Li Jinglong hurried to chide Hung Jun, "You haven't thanked her for her graciousness yet." "Thanks." Hung Jun was so happy that he skipped over and received that box, which had 3 whole layers in it, all of them packed to bursting with the pastries. Yang Yehuan glanced at Li Jinglong, then at Hung Jun, then again to Li Jinglong, and she smiled. "Jinglong, His Majesty was talking about rewarding you with some tangible thing, but I brought up the idea that if we helped you to properly coddle someone, then that would be better than anything else, wouldn't it?" Li Jinglong was temporarily speechless, and Li Longji merely patted his shoulder, saying, "It's time for you to start a family and advance in your career." This thoughtless sentence, Li Jinglong hadn't even fully comprehended it, but Tai understood first and couldn't help but laugh. Hung Jun's face was filled with confusion, as he was still lost in the joy of the Min Zi Min Gao. Unknown to them, Lady Qingguo had listened to her butler's story, and thus she had learned that Li Jinglong had brought a youth with him to return the cat. The youth liked to eat the pastries that the manor had, so she had passed on that information to Yang Yehuan. And these three sisters were all very smart. With a few sentences, they had started from the point of Li Jinglong not yet taking a wife, before thinking of the youth who followed him around. Rewarding this porcupine was naturally a difficult endeavor, so they would give the youth the pastries instead. And with a few flicks of their wrist, they had gossiped about this on their way over. At this time, the Great Tang was very liberal, and though Li Longji hadn't met many cuts leaves, when Yang Yahuan said it like this, then it must be so. And in the midst of these twists and turns, Li Jinglong observed their expressions and guessed at some of their thoughts as his face flushed red to the root of his ears. Yang Yahuan then smiled again. I was just joking, Jinglong should be rewarded as well. The eunuchs then came forward with a plate filled with 20 small 2-tael silver ingots, 40 taels of silver, and 10 bolts of indigo brocade. Li Jinglong hurried to receive the gifts, and Yang Qiuzhong waggled his finger meaningfully at Li Jinglong, not saying anything more, while Li Longji turned in a circle before walking away. Come, Qing'er, say goodbye to Li Zhenqi. Lady Qingguo held that cat's paw and waved it at Li Jinglong. Li Jinglong didn't want to shake it, but he also didn't want to refuse. Hung Jun, however, thought this was funny, and came over to stroke the cat's head, but the cat immediately tried to swipe at Hung Jun with its claws extended, afraid of him coming to squeeze it again. In his heart, Li Jinglong was wretchedly thinking, hurry up and send everyone away, why are you trying to provoke it again? Thankfully Lady Qingguo only smiled before carrying the cat away, and climbing onto the carriage with Li Longji. All of them were sent off with the appropriate honors. The Son of Heaven is departing for Mount Li, a voice called from outside. Hung Jun had to go see this time, and he poked his head out to see the street outside was filled with clamor. It was all done with the proper ceremonies, and finally the Longwu and Shenwu armies fell in step behind the procession as they turned out of the alley, heading to the walking pool. Finally, there was only them left, wearing their inner robes and white pants, standing in the courtyard. It was then that the Carpiao ran out of the grass tuft and jumped into the pond with a dew. End chapter. Legend of Exorcism. Chapter 20, The Prince of Persia. That night, everyone was eating dinner. Look at you all, Li Jinglong gestured with his chopsticks as he lectured them. At least pretend to have the courtesy to kneel. Origin answered, why would I have thought of all that? Atai, with a face of innocence, said, my family has a special rule. Even in front of Emperor Taizong, we wouldn't kneel. Li Jinglong. Origin said, to tell the truth, Zhenqi, my family also has a special rule. If we see the emperors of the central land we don't need to kneel, a simple bow is good enough. Li Jinglong looked at Chu Yangxi, who said, my family, there are saints among my ancestors, so I don't need to kneel, and we don't kneel for commoners. Li Jinglong lifted his hand, meaning all right, anyways I knelt, so it has nothing to do with any of you anymore. Hung Jun was still eating those pastries, as he had been from the afternoon all the way until the evening. Li Jinglong glanced at him and asked, and what background do you come from? Hung Jun said, my dad said, even if my family saw the Jade Emperor or the Buddha, we don't need to kneel. Everyone. Hung Jun. The Carpiao was currently dishing out the rice at the edge of the table, and it stopped him from wildly spilling all sorts of details of his own identity out to them. Hung Jun then added, but next time if you let me know ahead of time, I can kneel, it won't hurt. My dad won't know anyways, it's just that the person who receives the kneel might not live to the full extent of their fated lifespan. Chu Yangxi suddenly smiled and said, next time if you see a Yaogwai, you should put on down, go kneel in front of it, and give 3 sound kowtows to it, and you can put an end to its natural fate right then and there. That would be great, we all wouldn't need to work this hard either anymore. Good point. Hung Jun suddenly felt that this idea had some merit to it. He could try it out next time. You guys, Li Jinglong couldn't stand this inane banter anymore, and he said, hurry up and eat already, and Hung Jun, stop eating those pastries, you won't be able to finish your meal. Don't look down on my appetite. Hung Jun turned up his nose at Li Jinglong's provocation. Li Jinglong knitted his brows. After resting for a bit, the troubles he had before were still there, and they hadn't lessened even by a little bit. The case the exorcism department had taken on still couldn't be considered closed. Hung Jun's throwing knife was still missing. Daming Palace would soon come knocking on their door, asking for compensation, and last night his discussion with Fei Ao seemed to have another layer of meaning hidden within their exchange. Ah well, he'd eat first, then after eating, he'd go back to it. If he was full, his mood would be better. For a while, no one in the hall spoke as all of them mused over their own troubles. Finally, Li Jinglong put down his bowl and let out a sigh. Chu Yongxi moved to go make some tea. Tai smiled and comforted him. Zhenqi, there is no bump in one's life that cannot be overcome. Come, let's discuss what's troubling you. What do you want to do now? Li Jinglong's scalp tingled, and he exclaimed, no need. Li Jinglong warily glanced at his gathered subordinates, afraid that they had caused some other big trouble. Tai said, there are some things that we can't continue to hide from you. Li Jinglong's heart sank to the bottom of a valley, but well, whether it came horizontally or vertically it was all death either way, and he said, whatever, I'm just unlucky. Say it, either way when my head gets cut off, it'll just leave a scar the size of a bowl. It's nothing that serious, Tai said. Zhenqi, actually, before, I lied to you. My name isn't Hammurabi. My surname is Isai, and my full name is Tegla Isai. I am not a Tokharian, my ancestors are actually from Persia. Li Jinglong's expression was odd as he asked, what's wrong with Isai? Isai. In that moment, Li Jinglong came to a realization, and he was greatly shocked. You are the Sasanian, Li Jinglong's voice trembled as he spoke, Crown Prince. Tai said, a little melancholic, technically it should be the former Sasanian Empire. After all, my father, paternal grandfather, mother, and relatives, have all passed away. There's only me left. Hung Jun didn't know what the hell this Sasanian Empire was, but when he heard that Tai's loved ones had passed away, he thought of himself, and he couldn't help but pat Tai's shoulder in sympathy. Li Jinglong was still stuck in the extremes of shock. His brow furrowed deeply as he asked, why did you not go to see His Majesty? My ancestors were unable to fulfill their original promise. Tai ran his fingers through his curly brown hair, calmly saying, great-grandfather in the Battle of Talas lost the Angzi protectorate he had been granted by the Great Tang, and grandfather requested more troops from the Great Tang to regain his own country, but in the end. But when they got to Tokharistan, the troops left on their own. Li Jinglong answered for him. Tai was a little surprised, and he asked, you know. Li Jinglong answered him with a question, and then what? Tai let out a sigh. That year, when Isai had lost Persia in battle, the capital had been taken by the Abbasid forces, and the 3 generations of the ruling clan had started to flee. The 3 generations of the Isai family that fled, including Tai's grandfather, had requested troops from the Great Tang, installed themselves in the Angzi protectorate, and set up a military-governed new state of Persia in Jilin. But the good times didn't last long. In just a few years, the last piece of land that the Tang-supported Persia held was lost to the Abbasids' attacks. The sons of the Isai family, including Tai's grandfather, Perez III, had taken Tai's father, Narsi, back with them to request more troops. Jiaozong, Li Ji sent out troops to escort them back to Tokharistan, but the journey took over 10 years, and the original deployment had long since started to split apart as the troops lost morale. Finally, the commander of the forces, Pei Xingjian, escorted the refugee Persian princes to Tokharistan before promptly taking his forces and leaving. When Narsi returned to the central land, the Great Tang had already changed greatly. Zhongzong, Li Xian had reassigned the post of awe-inspiring general of the left, and he no longer brought up the idea of borrowing troops. In a short 2 years, Narsi realized that there was no hope for him to revive his own country, so he returned to Tokaristan. 10 years later, he had a son, whom he named Tegla, and that was Atai who stood before them today. Ever since Persia was destroyed, 4 generations of Persian princes had harbored this slim hope and traveled thousands of miles from the western regions to the central land, before returning back to the western regions. On this autumn night, this story that came out of Atai's mouth was tinged with the flavors of desolation and regret. Pei Xingjian is my maternal grandfather, Li Jinglong suddenly said. Atai. For what happened back then, I apologize, Li Jinglong sighed and said. What does it have to do with you? Atai began to smile, and he continued, if I were in his shoes, seeing that there was no hope of reviving that country, I also wouldn't choose to lay down the lives of 20,000 men in the western regions. Li Jinglong sighed, and Mo-Rijin responded, the Abbasid troops have the advantage of numbers. Fighting a head-on battle is a waste of time and effort, it's not a smart strategy. You must try to attack them from the inside. Atai nodded and said, to tell the truth, I know all of this already. My kingly father already had me give up on this goal before he passed away. He said, Atai, I hope that you can properly live out your own life. Don't be like me and your grandfather, wasting your entire life on. When he got to this point, Atai quieted. After a long silence, Hung Jun said, but you still wish to accomplish it, right? Atai smiled gently, but that smile held a little sadness. Hung Jun understood him very well. Just before he went down the mountain, Chongming and Qingxiang had also entrusted similar expectations onto him. Though they said it was fine with their mouths, Hung Jun felt that he had to accomplish those tasks. But, what he sympathized with Atai the most was that the person who had placed so many hopes on him, was already dead. Now how many people do you still have under you? Li Jinglong asked. Did you bring them with you? Li Jinglong's sentence was like a single knife cutting straight through the fog, and in Atai's eyes, a spark of hope rekindled. They're all in Tokaristan, Atai answered. There are still over 100 people, they're currently being led by a friend in my absence. Li Jinglong took a long breath before standing up and walking out into the courtyard. He thought deeply for a moment, before asking, Atai, how did you learn your repertoire of skills? Atai was born the year that Narsi had turned 50. As Zoroastrianism was the main Persian religion then, after the Sasanian Empire had collapsed, it had obviously been replaced. Therefore, the former high priest took in Atai as his sole disciple. Atai had learned how to control the power of the 4 rings of fire, earth, thunder, and water, and he had learned how to use the godly hurricane fan, as was fitting for the saintly prince who would regain the country and restore the faith. However, the high priest died even earlier than Narsi, and it turned out that there were quite a few followers of Zoroastrianism left in the Middle Land. They had nearly retreated into hiding from the persecution of the Abbasid Caliphate. What do you need me to do for you? Li Jinglong turned and asked. I will happily expend my energy for Chang'an, Atai answered. The Great Tang has always been the most loyal of my Persia's allies, and I can do anything for them. I hope that in return, there will be a day where the Great Tang Emperor can lend me troops so that I may go and reclaim my country. How could it be this easy? The people in the hall knew clearly that, even if the current emperor was willing to offend the Abbasid Caliphate, even if they sent out troops, what were the chances of victory? I will do my best. Finally, Li Jinglong said earnestly, but we cannot rush this matter right now. Atai nodded and answered, this time, I came to Chang'an having prepared myself. In this flourishing era, we are balanced precariously. If the Yao King of Chang'an isn't eliminated, then perhaps the Great Tang won't even be able to take care of itself. In that case, allowing me to borrow troops would be something completely out of the question. In an instant, Li Jinglong's brows furrowed. The Yao King. Chu Yongxi, like placid clouds and light breezes, said, wherever there are a large number of the Yao tribe gathered in one place, there must be a Yao King. The Chang'an of today has two kings, the one in the light is the true dragon, the son of heaven that we saw today. The other is hidden in the dark, the Yao king who dominates over the near 10,000 Yao in this capital. Origin thought about it for a moment, before saying, Hung Jun, I'm not sure about, but to tell you the truth, the three of us all came here for the Yao king. Where is the Yao king? Li Jinglong had just opened his mouth and asked when someone else came to visit. Li Zhenqi of the exorcism department, Lian Hao called politely from the outside, Huang Yang, Deputy Chief Huang of the Judiciary Department extends an invitation to you. Li Jinglong's heart thumped in his chest, knowing that the unspeakable truth of what happened to Daming Palace had finally been revealed. Everyone stared at each other, but when they tried to get up, Li Jinglong stopped them, indicating that he would be the only one to go to set things straight. Is he going to get tied up and beaten? Hung Jun remembered that the last time they went to the Judiciary Department he had heard the anguished cries of the prisoners, and he felt a little lingering fear. Chu Yangxi consoled him, there's no way. If he doesn't return by tomorrow morning, everyone here will think of ways to bail him out. The money has all been spent, and now such a big thing has to happen, A Tai said. We also don't know anyone in Chang'an, so how will we go about bailing him out? Origin held his forehead with one hand. They had managed to catch a Yao after working so hard, but now he had to go bail out his own superior. He also didn't know what he had done wrong. Come. A Tai saw that the atmosphere was a little heavy, and he suggested, let's forget about these unhappy things, I'll play a piece for you guys to listen to. Chu Yangxi couldn't help but ask, do you think Zhenqi took all that in? A Tai strummed the strings of his lute and answered, I think he took it all in, but you guys, it'd be better if you didn't say too much now. Hung Jun. Including you, Origin said to Hung Jun. Hung Jun, you trust others too easily. Hung Jun felt that the other two people also had some difficult truths they were hiding, but the matter of A Tai actually being the Persian prince, this was something that he had never expected. Are you guys also princes? Hung Jun asked. He thought that Origin and Chu Yangxi would both smile a little, but he didn't expect Origin to nod and say, I guess I count as one. Chu Yangxi replied. It's hard to say, I also don't know if I am or not. I guess that I technically count as one, if you guys acknowledge it. The carp Yao clambered up from the pond, leaning its head on the side, and said, my family's Hung Jun is also a prince. Who isn't a prince or something like that? Everyone laughed loudly, and A Tai lifted his palm to high-five Hung Jun, saying, I knew it. Awesome. Everyone, because of their same status, grew quite a bit closer to each other. Just as A Tai was about to play, Hung Jun couldn't help but ask, A Tai, I honestly really want to listen to you play, but I need to interrupt once more, where is the Yao King? A Tai lifted his head, and everyone paused for a moment. Origin asked, you're also searching for it? Hung Jun thought about it, looking towards the carp Yao, and seeing that the carp Yao didn't say anything, nodded a little. Why? Chu Yangxi asked. It's fine, Origin indicated that Chu Yangxi shouldn't continue to ask and responded, this isn't important. Hung Jun, you're on our side. Of course. Hung Jun understood the meaning hidden in Origin's words and said. No matter if it's suppression or extermination, I will always be its enemy. Everyone wore expressions of then that's good. Chu Yangxi paced a few steps in the courtyard and said, the Yao King has yet to reveal itself, and right now no one knows its identity or real appearance. But the one thing we can confirm is that it must be close to the Emperor, and maybe even by his side. It's a black Jiao, Hung Jun suddenly said. The other three were stunned. Origin unconsciously licked his lower lip, and Chu Yangxi said, I knew it must be. Let's search for it slowly, there will always be some tiny trace that we can find, like its current hiding place. What I worry about is that with our current strength, we may not be its opponents. Hung Jun sighed and said, of my 4 throwing knives, I've lost one. If I can get back my heavenly thunder knife, then the throwing knives can exert their strongest power. Now, all I can do is fight a few small yaos, it's not nearly strong enough. Hung Jun's identity was the most mysterious, and though the rest of them didn't know where he came from, they could confirm one thing: this little guy was far more otherworldly than the rest of them, and it was quite possible that he was the disciple of some immortal saint or great god. But as long as he didn't say anything, the rest of them wouldn't ask. So, Kong Hung Jun, you came to Chang'an to take down the Yao King as well? A Tai asked. The three of them all watched Hung Jun, and Hung Jun nodded and said, "That's right." Everyone was relieved. They had obviously guessed many times at Hung Jun's identity. What they had guessed the most often was that he was of the Yao tribe. He had a carp Yao following him, so he could very well not be on their side. But as long as they had the same goal in the short term, then everything was easy to work with. For our mutual goal of defeating the Chang'an Yao King, A Tai said, let's listen to some lively battle music. Everyone cheered. No matter how difficult the future was, occasionally pouring out their hearts to each other was nothing difficult, and presently A Tai began to play his lute as Hung Jun went to go find a bowl to hit, and everyone began to listen to the song. At the same time, Li Jinglong stood in the lantern-lit bright interrogation hall of the Judiciary Department, his body and heart exhausted. The dinner the carp Yao had made that night was too salty, and he was incredibly thirsty. The Minister of Industry Qin Xiaokong, the Minister of Justice Wen Yu, the Deputy Chief of the Judiciary Department Huang Yang, his old superior Hu Sheng, the Shenwu Army Marshal Tu Ziwen, the Minister of Rights, a Daming Palace official, and the head eunuch Gao Lishi sitting in the middle. All of the officials had gathered here. Each of them were ostensibly here to conduct their inquiries, but in reality they were all here to interrogate Li Jinglong. All that was missing was putting him in shackles. If he had Chu Yangxi's power, the thing Li Jinglong wanted to do most was to wave that giant brush around once, sweeping all of these people into the painting, so that he could return his ears to a state of cleanliness and return the Great Tang to a state of peace. From the beginning to the end, I've already explained it in detail 3 times now, Li Jinglong said. I swear that there is nothing I am hiding. Gao Lishi was the main authority in the room, like the bright noonday sun. The exorcism department technically was still under the jurisdiction of Yang Qiuzhong, and originally on behalf of Yang Qiuzhong, any small mishaps could be easily overlooked. But now, Li Jinglong had brought a group of his subordinates and destroyed at least 10% of Daming Palace, and his main excuse was that they were catching Yao, so how were they supposed to deal with this? I do believe you, Gao Lishi said, but how do you want me to report this to His Majesty? Report the truth as it is, Li Jinglong said without a shred of fear. Chang'an has been troubled by Yao for a long time now, and all of this is only the beginning. Sooner or later, there will be a day where we drag out the Yao King hiding behind the scenes, and I'm afraid that at that time, the great generals above me will have much more to report. With this sentence, everyone heard the words Yao King, and all of them were greatly startled. This is just an exaggeration to make us afraid, the Minister of Justice, Wen Yu, snapped. He was evidently done with this farce. Li Jinglong, the way I see it, you're insane. Li Jinglong laughed loudly and said, then the palace servants at Daming Palace who witnessed the events, the guards on the city wall who saw that Yaogwai, how do you explain the testimonies of all these groups of people? And even Commander Hu, you've gone insane with the rest of us. Hu Sheng's expression became extremely strange. In this moment, he realized that he had stepped right into Li Jinglong's trap. This time, no matter what, Li Jinglong was going to leave himself an eyewitness, and this time, Hu Sheng couldn't escape at all. He could only say, the fox Yao I saw with my own eyes, and it is exactly as Li Jinglong says. The rest, I don't know. Gao Lishi was dumbfounded at this, but the Minister of Industry Qin Xiaokong said, for now, let's assume that these events are real. The matter of destroying Daming Palace, how are you going to escape that one? That was destroyed by the Yaogwai, Li Jinglong answered. My subordinates and I were not involved in it. The meaning of that is then, we should go find the Yaogwai to compensate us properly, the Minister of Rites said, his voice slow and measured. Li Jinglong was fed up with all of this, and he said, do these Darren gathered here know that if we let those Yaogwai run wild through Chang'an, committing countless atrocities, how many people will die in the coming days? Li Jinglong. Gao Lishi's brow was deeply furrowed. He was already extremely tired of all of this, and he said, that's enough, don't keep arguing with us, you can leave. Li Jinglong. In an instant, all of the blood rushed to Li Jinglong's head, and he almost lost control of himself and began to shout loudly. But the two Judiciary Department guards to his left and right pressed him forward, and he was escorted out of the room. This madman is actually favored by the imperial consort. Originally I wanted to find some made-up misstep to get rid of him, but I never thought that he would actually take his duty seriously and create such a large problem. This was the last sentence Li Jinglong heard Qin Xiaokong say before the doors to the interrogation hall closed. The guards brought him to the pitch-black plaza outside of the interrogation hall and had him wait there for the results. Does everyone believe him? Gao Lishi asked. The people sitting there looked back and forth at each other, but no one wanted to speak. In their hearts, they all believed a good amount of it, since otherwise there would be absolutely no sensible explanation for all of this, but Yao and evil, no matter what view you took, could absolutely not be brought up in front of the great Son of Heaven. Huang Yang said, how I see it, it's better to say that Daming Palace experienced a sudden tornado in the night, which explains the upturned soil and collapsed buildings, and the case can be closed then. The Ministry of Industry can then send craftsmen and repairmen to go fix up the place in the night. The Minister of Industry huffed, meaning that for the havoc that your Judiciary Department wrought, why should my Ministry of Industry carry the pot? Gao Lishi smiled and splayed out his hand, saying, the Exorcism Department is still under the jurisdiction of Chancellor Yang, so what else can we do? I think the Chancellor of the Right may not know of these matters, probably, the Minister of Criminal Justice, Wen Yu, said. This time, if we let it go on behalf of the Chancellor of the Right, what about next time? Qin Xiaokong said coldly. Will we let it go like this every time? What can I do? Gao Lishi smiled and said. I'm also very frustrated over this. Everyone, originally I should have been inviting everyone to my house for drinks at this time. Instead, we were woken in the middle of the night to come here and listen to this kind of nonsensical narrative. Since you do believe it, Huang Yang said, then it's no longer a story. In the past, Old Dick created the Exorcism Department precisely for. No matter if it is or not, the Minister of Justice coldly interrupted, if this matter were to spread, then it would definitely strike fear into the hearts of the people of Chang'an. As soon as it spreads, there's no going back, so we can't let him continue on like this. We must shut down this random government office, no matter how fierce the Yao are, they are still made of flesh. Since the cases still go to the Judiciary Department, aren't you all able to catch the Yao as well? Wen Yu was Huang Yang's superior, and with this sentence, Huang Yang could only shut up and nod. Gao Lishi said, but the consort has a soft spot for them. General Gao, Wen Yu turned and said, if you let this servant continue to run around like this, then in the future when he causes an even bigger commotion, I'm afraid that even Chancellor Yang is going to feel the repercussions. Gao Lishi's eyes darted back and forth, and he didn't say anything more. The collapse of Daming Palace can be fixed, the Minister of Rites said, but what if next time what gets destroyed is the shrine of the ancestors? Gao Lishi let out a small cough. This sentence was the last straw that broke the camel's back. But this matter, we have to at least mention it to the Chancellor, Gao Lishi said thoughtfully. We need to keep the consort's reputation intact as well. That is true, everyone nodded, coming to an agreement. The court recorder began to draw up the transfer order, but Wen Yu added, no need to cross jurisdictions to come up with this official order. Tomorrow I am going to the Ministry of Personnel, I think Li Jinglong's original transfer order hasn't been processed yet, so I'll just tell them to cancel it." Gao Lishi nodded and said, "As for the matter of His Majesty's Imperial Seal and Chancellor Yang, leave it to me to take care of. Commander Hu, Li Jinglong's future arrangements are once again yours to handle. You are his old superior officer, and it's up to you to keep him quiet so he doesn't stir up trouble again. As for Feng Changqing's side, we'll have to trouble you to take a trip there as well." What could Hu Sheng say? He could only smile bitterly and nod. Presently, everyone slapped the table and came to the same decision: with one stroke of the brush, they would wipe away the entire exorcism department to prevent more troubles accumulating in the future and causing everyone to lose their offices and their heads. The Son of Heaven was glorious and shouldn't be bogged down by pig comrades. Based on previous incidents, both big and small, that had come before the court, officials before had lost their heads like wheat being harvested, so they naturally thought that this decision was very necessary. End chapter.